Welcome back everybody, this is Chad with Iraq Veteran 88, and today we're down in the shop to do another gunsmithing video for you. I don't think we can call assembling a 1022 custom build gunsmithing. It's pretty much assembling because you really only need one tool. But this is a custom build that we're going to be putting together for Eric. He picked out some components from Brownells and decided to get kind of a lightweight build that was threaded 1/2x28 that he could run a suppressor on and just, you know, have some fun with and plink for squirrels or whatever the case is around the yard. But this is kind of like an upper tier build, and I just want to show you guys how easy it is to put something like this together. And the 1022, as you well know, is pretty much one of the most popular 22 auto-loading rifles on the market. There are literally hundreds of thousands, it seems, of parts out there for these guns, and the options for customization are pretty much endless. I mean, you guys have seen my custom 1022 that I've got set up. You know, I've got a lot of work and time in that. Ray has some time in it as well. You know, with a lot of gunsmithing, actual gunsmithing applications. The barrel is threaded to the receiver. It's been blueprinted. I mean, the bolt's been refaced. I mean, it's got pretty much every bell and whistle on the thing, and it will literally group a 1/4 inch at 50 yards with the proper ammunition. And that's an auto-loading rifle. So, you know, that's something that you can hope to achieve out of a gun like this. But, you know, I've got about $2 grand in that gun, and with the components that we have here, it's about $1,400. But this is really kind of upper tier stuff. We've got a Bell & Carlson Medalist stock. This is a pretty cool kind of tactical style stock with the cut on the bottom here for shouldering the gun from the bench, more for bench rest type shooting, but it's got a high comb for scope use, wide forearm, and it's cut for a 920 bull barrel. These stocks are wonderful for the money. Sometimes they do require just a touch of minor sandpaper inletting just to fit components properly, make it maybe a little bit easier to drop like the trigger group out. Sometimes you can feel in here, and there's a couple little high spots that need to be taken down. We're going to go over that. And also you can inlet the magazine area just slightly so the mags will drop free. That's a common issue with these stocks, but for the money, they're great. And we've got a Volquartsen receiver. This is one of their just custom receivers. It's all aluminum, anodized, comes with a Picatinny rail on top. Very, very high quality receiver. Comes with stainless steel trigger group pins. We've got a PWS, Primary Weapon Systems. This is a carbon fiber tension barrel. And if any of you guys have ever put together 1022s before, you know that like a solid steel bull barrel in the 920 diameter is going to be very heavy. They usually weigh around about 3 pounds, give or take. This is a 1 pound 6 ounce barrel. The way they achieve that is by using a kind of a thin barrel profile, but they wrap it in carbon fiber to bring the diameter up, and then what they have is a tension cap on the front. And this barrel is threaded 1/2x28 for muzzle devices and suppressors, but you can see on the front here there's 3 little openings, and that's a special wrench that they use to tighten the barrel shank with the carbon fiber wrap, and that provides a very rigid barrel and a very accurate barrel at that. So we're going to be dropping this on there, and it literally is a drop-in fit. These are a smooth shank for insertion into the receiver here, and it just holds in place with a small V-block, which is common for 1022s. This is a stock item. So there's a couple little intricacies to the screw torque that we're going to go over later in the video and just kind of, you know, inform you guys about. But the trigger group that we're going to use is from Timney Triggers. This is just a custom 1022 trigger group with kind of a long extended magazine release. Makes it easy when you're shouldering the gun or whatever from the bench or just out in the field to push with your trigger finger and actuate the mag release, and then you can reload on the haste. The only other item is a custom bolt from Volquartsen. The 1022 bolt is a little rough around the edges, if you will. There's a lot of guys who, you know, like use them for bench rest competition or just silhouette shooting or anything like that. They'll have the bolts blueprinted and usually have a better extractor added. Volquartsen actually takes the bolts and they machine them in-house, so proper specs all the way. And they've got a really nice extractor. The firing pin is pinned in place. This one has a custom handle, custom bolt handle that's actually threaded into the bolt body itself, so it uses a different arrangement for the recoil spring assembly compared to a standard 1022. As far as tools, you can really put this thing together on your kitchen table with nothing more than a 5/32 Allen key. I mean, that's how simple these things are. But like I mentioned, you're going to want to take a little bit of sandpaper, maybe just to inlet the stock a little bit. Yeah, we're using the Brownells Magnatip set, as you guys have seen in other videos. This is a great screwdriver set. gunsmithing specific with a lot of hollow ground bits, so you won't mar or damage your firearms or the screws, especially on antique guns. But we've got our vise over here, which Eric has appropriately named Mr. Panch. So we're gonna basically just break this thing down here and get started. Real simple process, guys. We're just going to take you along for the ride, and we're going to take it out and test fire it later, and you know, see how she shoots. Maybe you know, get it warmed up and shoot some groups with it. So let's go. If you're going to use a vise for this, you don't want to put the receiver in vertically like this, unless you take very, very special care not to panch it so tight, because these walls, the receiver walls here, will just cave in, and if you do it too hard, basically what's going to happen is you're going to bend these raceways and you're going to ruin your receiver. You could even cause stress fractures or anything like that, but what we're going to do is clamp it this way, so your clamping force is exerted on the receiver walls this way, so you're not going to have to worry about any sort of issues there. So just get a nice tight hold on there, and we're going to move it back just a touch here. Okay, that'll be good. And using the vise just gives you two hands free to work with. Now these barrels feature a V-block clamping system. So basically, if you're doing this on, say, like a stock Ruger 1022 receiver, whatever the case is, it's already barreled, all you have to do is remove the clamp, put your new barrel on, and inlet your stock if you need to. But since we have a custom stock here, we're just going to run that as it sits. V-block goes in place. Either way, it's symmetrical, so it's just going to drop on, and what we're going to do is just kind of get that one screw on there started. We're going to use some blue Loctite to secure our screws, and there's a lot of conjecture about torque on not only the V-block screws but also on the takedown screw itself. The V-block screws I've never really had any issues with in any of my guns. I just usually pretty much put them on until it's hand tight, and then give it about a quarter turn. You're going to wind up being about 20 inch-pounds. But for you guys that are really, you know, into keeping things in spec, you can torque these to about 20 inch-pounds. Is kind of the typical thing. But where you come into wanting to pay attention to your torque specifications is on your actual takedown screw. And we're using one of the little Bondus Allen key sets here with a rounded ball head. This makes it really easy to get around the barrel at an angle and not strip your screw heads out. And see, we're able to actually work this screw in here, or bolt I should say, very, very easily around this barrel without banging into it and damaging the carbon fiber. That's one thing about these carbon fiber barrels. You don't want to damage them, scratch them, or anything like that, because the carbon fiber is sealed, but it will start to come apart, and this stuff makes a wicked nasty splinter. So basically contact, and then we're just going to give it a quarter turn. Just snug her up. Another quarter turn. Okay, and we are all set there. Pretty simple process. Like I said, you can do this on your kitchen table. All right, so the next step is going to drop the bolt into the receiver here. This Volquartsen bolt is very high quality. I've got a standard 1022 bolt here to show you, just to compare. As you can see, the bolt is one solid unit. It doesn't have the firing pin channel, and what that allows for is the firing pin to remain stationary in the Volquartsen, whereas in the 1022 it has a tendency to bounce up and down just a little bit. Even when you have the firing pin kind of held in place by the charging handle assembly, it still has a little bit of walking room. On the Volquartsen, there's no way that firing pin can walk up and down at all. It just provides for more consistent ignition of the rimfire primers. These bolts are just a really great upgrade. There's a lot of them on the market. Volquartsen, Kid, I've used a bunch of different ones, but if you're building a custom gun from the ground up, these are certainly a really, really good investment. And the bolt comes with its own charging handle that's threaded into the bolt itself, and then a custom recoil and recoil guide rod spring assembly. So what we're going to do is, the receiver comes with the buffer installed. You're going to need to remove the buffer, okay? And the bolt will drop in place with the recoil spring assembly installed. What we're going to do is just pinch this down here, get it in place, okay? Just kind of like to pinch it together. what we're going to do is line it. There's a detent inside the receiver here for the recoil guide rod, and it just basically angles and drops in place, and then voila, there's the bolt. And very simply thread your charging handle into the bolt, and we'll give that a little quick torque with the Brownell set here, and we're going to move on to installing the trigger group. Very, very simple process. Alright, so we're going to drop our little buffer back in place. Now these plastic, the soft plastic or like the rubber buffers with the stainless pin, those are really good for quieting the action down on a 1022. Stock 1022s come with a steel buffer. Basically it's just to prevent the bolt from traveling and damaging the receiver itself. But I found that on suppressed guns, if you're going to run a suppressor on a 1022 like this, these rubber buffers are a must because they do quiet the action down quite a bit and reduce the amount of noise that you hear, behind the gun. So this receiver comes stock with one, but they're a good upgrade as well. Now the Timney trigger, these are all just a single unit. There's nothing really to do other than drop it into place. Now, if you're mixing brands, sometimes you'll have a very minor fitment issue between the trigger groups and the receiver itself. So you might have to just take some fine sandpaper and just sand those surfaces down just slightly so it'll fit. But it comes with some stainless steel pins, and these are really, really nice. Get this thing lined up. Basically we're just going to tap these pins in place. Pretty tight fit on the front pin. Let's see how the rear pin goes. Yeah. Pretty snug fit. Yeah, it's a little bit loosey-goosey. That's kind of common. Now, I'm not sure about any other manufacturers, but I've used a set of receiver pins from Kid Innovative Guns. They do a lot of custom 1022 stuff, and they have a receiver pin set that actually comes with a countersink. And what you do is you countersink your receiver, and the pins are threaded on both ends, and you use some screws, and you drop those in, and then you've got pretty much a solid arrangement. The pins aren't going to walk out. The fitment between the trigger group and the receiver is going to be more tight, and the tighter fit of everything is, the better accuracy potential the rifle is going to have. But aside from that, that is the barreled action assembled. I mean, it's literally just putting it together. So let's move on. Let's drop this thing in stock, make sure everything fits up right. I'm going to take some sandpaper and inlet a couple of areas so the magazines will drop out, and we'll move on and one step closer to test firing. Let's go. All right, guys, before we install the stock on the action, I've done a little bit of test fitting already just to make sure that everything will drop on fine. And let's see what we got here. Here we go. Watch out sometimes for the safety. It's got to be kind of in the middle notch to get these stocks on and off, but everything seems to drop on fine. It's a nice, pretty tight fit. 1022s always do pretty well with bedding. It's a little bit of an involved process. Probably cover that in a future video, but like I said, I was going to just very lightly remove some material from the inletting of the stock, just using a piece of 60 grit emery cloth. Basically what you can do is just take a little bit of the material off here, and no, I'm not using a sanding block. It's just a tiny little bit of stuff coming off of there. But basically taking down these high spots, and what that'll do is it'll help with the magazine insertion and removal, and hopefully be able to allow the magazines to drop free. If just this little bit of sanding doesn't work and do the trick, what you can do is just pull the stock out, and you can take an actual sanding block and really take some material off and just test fit it, take a little bit off, test fit the magazine back in the action, see how it does, and just kind of go at a slow pace. You don't want to remove so much material that it's going to affect the inletting to the point where the action is going to be kind of loosey-goosey in there. But we'll give that a whirl. Blow this thing off real quick. Much smoother. It's just the coating on these fiberglass stocks. These composite stocks sometimes can run a little bit and cause a little bit of issue, but nothing you can't fix with a little bit of elbow grease real quick. So what I'm going to do is drop this in place. Okay. Now I will mention one thing. The takedown screw that came with the PWS barrel was actually too short for this particular stock setup. So what I had to do is just rob a longer takedown screw off of my 1022 that I had with me. But just something to be mindful about. So you might want to order a longer standard takedown screw if you're ordering this particular barrel. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this screw and torque it down to 20 inch-pounds. It's kind of a good round number. Okay. And what the takedown screw does, it obviously holds the action in place, but it can change the harmonics of the barrel slightly, depending on what you're running, especially if you're running a real heavy profile barrel, something like a 3-pound shilling like I have on my 1022. If you pull the action out of the stock for whatever reason, you always want to make sure you go back to the same torque setting. You know, just feeling it, like torquing it down and then giving it a quarter turn, that works okay. But if you're going for the utmost accuracy and repeatability, it's always best to torque it down to a specified setting. So also, if you really want to play around with the accuracy of a 1022, what I've done in the past is actually set my screw at 10 inch-pounds, and then shot a couple of groups, worked up to 12 inch-pounds, shot a couple of groups, and you kind of go up the scale and you kind of find a sweet spot for your particular setup. And once you find that sweet spot, you know, you can usually get pretty good groupings out of it. And that's how I got quarter-inch groupings out of my match gun at 50 yards. So we're just going to drop an optic on this thing, I think, and go outside and test fire it. I'm pretty sure that we are done. All right, guys, so there she is in all of her glory. Eric's little custom lightweight 1022 build, and I have to say this thing is very lightweight. We dropped a Trijicon AccuPoint. It's a little 3-9x40 that he had on another 1022 build. He picked this optic up quite a while back, but it's been a really good one. We had to adjust the rings a little bit to get it on this base, and we dropped a little AAC Element 2 on here. Very, very quiet cam. We're going to go outside and take a few shots with auto match and some suppressor specific ammo. We don't really have any match ammo here, but you know, later on probably take this thing out and do a little bit of accuracy testing and kind of give you guys like an after range report. But let's go have some fun. All right, guys, so we got the rifle completed. We're going to test fire it and just see if everything works like it should, which I don't see any reason why it shouldn't. Let's give it a whirl here. We got some targets posted about 50 yards away, and here comes Crazy Dog. Get out of here. Love 1022. Shoot some in the dirt real quick. This is a CCI suppressor ammo, so sounds really good out of a full-length rifle. Oh yeah. Let's go for some headshots here. Ooh, right over the top. These BX-25s, they never end. Ah, awesome. Well, I think what we're going to do, we're not going to take this thing out and group it today. So what we're going to do is we're going to pit Eric's little custom lightweight build up against my like Mac Daddy custom Phasian stocked, you know, threaded barrel, the whole 9 yards. I'm not going to run them suppressed because mine's not suppressed, keep the test consistent, but we're going to run a bunch of different match ammo and just see, you know, how the two rifles compare. We'll have that coming down the pipeline before too long. But anyways, hope you enjoyed the video today and maybe learned something about assembling a 1022. There's really not any gunsmithing involved with a 1022, I mean, that the average home user can do, but you know, a few little tips and tricks there. Hope you guys enjoyed. So take care and more on the way.